June 11th, 2006, Hammerstein Ballroom, New York City, ECW One Night Stand. John Cena walks down the entrance ramp, and the building is trying to kill him. Not figuratively. The crowd is throwing toilet paper at him. Signs reading, "If Cena wins, we riot," bob through a sea of middle fingers.
I knew it was going to be pretty gnarly. I thought I was going to get my ass kicked.
And the sound, this wall of hatred so thick you can almost see it pushing against him with every step. The chants had started 3 hours before this match even began. 3 hours. These people paid money to hate him for an entire evening. He gets in the ring, and at one point during the match, he tosses his t-shirt into the crowd. Someone spits on it. They throw it back at him.
On this night in 2006, the crowd weren't just booing John Cena.
What do you make of like some of the WWE fans that they felt like they bullied you and things like that?
They were booing what he stood for.
Rob Van Dam pins him. The crowd explodes. There's this moment where you can see something in his eyes. Not defeat. He was supposed to lose. Something else. Something like recognition. Like he finally understood what he had become. I want you to hold on to that image. A man in his late 20s, at the peak of his physical career, being pelted with garbage by people who paid money to watch him lose. Now hold on to this one. A hospital room, fluorescent lights, a kid, maybe 8, maybe younger, hooked up to machines that are keeping him alive. And John Cena walks in wearing that same bright-colored shirt, same goofy grin, and spends hours making that child feel like he matters, making the parents feel like someone sees them. He's done this over 650 times, more Make-A-Wish appearances than any human being in the Foundation's history. That's not hyperbole. It's a Guinness World Record, verified in July 2022. The next closest celebrity hasn't even reached 400. Cena has granted more than double anyone else.
Parents are watching their child be free of all of that and hopefully free of pain for a few moments.
Say hi to everybody at home! Hi, Willie!
Dear John, you have heard thousands of times, but you deserve to hear it 1,000 more. Thank you.
So just thank you for making such a difference and providing so much hope.
The joy it brings not only to the children, to the families. I like that one the best. And that joy equals hope, and hope can sometimes move mountains.
So here's the question that's been bouncing around my head for 20 years. How does someone who grants wishes to dying children become the most hated man in professional wrestling?
The really devoted hardcore fans wanting to come to boo John Cena.
There's a large group of critical influence that wants me to change who I am.
And I think the answer isn't really about John Cena at all. It's about what happens when a person stops being a person and becomes a symbol. When the thing you represent matters more than who you actually are. This is a story about hate, about carrying it, about outliving it.
If you like what you saw in 1999, when you turn in 2005 and 6, it is not the same thing. And it's easy to pin it on me.
And if you're not a wrestling fan, if you're wondering why a grown adult would spend however long this video is talking about a fake sport with predetermined outcomes, look, I get it. But stick around, because underneath all the spandex and soap opera, there's something genuinely fascinating happening here. Something about how we choose who to love and who to blame. Something about forgiveness.
Here's something every WWE fan has noticed lately. They're pushing fans to pay for USA Network, Netflix, ESPN, and Peacock just to watch Raw, SmackDown, and PLEs. But with NordVPN, you can stream all WWE shows on Netflix by switching your virtual location in seconds. Right now, NordVPN is offering up to 77% off plus 3 months free. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Now let's get back to the video.
Let's go back to the beginning, before the hate existed. June 27th, 2002, SmackDown. Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist, legitimate wrestling machine, one of the most decorated performers in the company's history, issues an open challenge to anyone he's never faced before. And out walks this kid nobody's ever seen. Generic music, pull trunks. No character, no catchphrase, nothing. Angle looks at him with this dismissive smirk and asks what quality makes this nobody think he can answer the challenge.
Ruthless aggression.
I remember watching this and something clicking. There was something in his eyes. This hungry, cocky energy that made you sit up a little straighter. He didn't win the match. Angle beat him with a float-over pinning combination after about 12 minutes. But that's not the point. The point is that for those 12 minutes, this kid with nothing made you believe he belonged in that ring with someone who had everything. After the match, something happened backstage that most fans didn't see at the time. The Undertaker, then WWE champion, the most respected man in the locker room, this was John Cena before he became a symbol, before the merchandise empire, before the PG stamp, before any of it. Cena reinvents himself as a trash-talking rapper who freestyles his opponents into oblivion before matches. He wears backwards caps and jerseys. He carries a chain lock as a weapon. He's crude, funny, and genuinely charismatic. And the thing is, it worked. Not because WWE told us to like him, but because he was legitimately entertaining. His promos felt off-script, improvised, dangerous in the way the best wrestling promos are. You never quite knew what he was going to say. Fans connected with this version of Cena almost immediately, and I think there's something important about that connection, about the feeling that you, the audience, discovered something before the machine did, that you helped make him popular, that he was, in some weird parasocial way, yours. This is the version of John Cena that felt authentic, edgy, real. I love this era, watching Cena rap through promos and thinking, this guy's going places. It felt organic, like watching someone earn his spot in real time. Remember that feeling. It matters later, because here's the psychological foundation that would shape everything that followed. Once fans help build someone, once they feel a character is theirs, they take it very personally when the company changes him. This is the seed that grows into the hate. 3 years after his debut, April 3rd, 2005, John Cena stood in the Staples Center at WrestleMania 21, facing JBL for the WWE Championship. JBL had been a dominant heel champion for nearly a year at this point, a loudmouth bully who cheated his way through every defense. Cena had earned this shot by defeating Kurt Angle at No Way Out, and for about 11 minutes, the two told a simple but effective story, the brash young challenger finally getting his moment against the cowardly champion. JBL goes for his finishing move, the clothesline from hell. Cena ducks it, F.U., pin, new champion. Confetti falls. The crowd goes absolutely insane, and if you freeze the moment right there, it looks like the perfect culmination of a 3-year underdog story. The rapper from the streets becomes the champion of the world. Everything feels earned. 11 days later, Cena would introduce the customized spinner WWE Championship belt, this gaudy, ridiculous, iconic thing that would become synonymous with his era.
Spinner belt. 30-something pounds of garbage.
The WWE Championship is supposed to be prestigious, a symbol of athletic excellence that dates back decades. Cena's spinner belt had a centerpiece that literally rotated. It looked like a toy. It was a toy. WWE sold replicas of it at every arena, every Walmart, every Target. The most prestigious championship in wrestling had been transformed into a piece of merchandise, and Cena was the one wearing it. But here's the thing about wrestling, and honestly about anything that becomes too successful too quickly. The moment you become the guy, you stop being the underdog, and the qualities that made people fall in love with you start to become complicated. Within months of that title win, something shifts. Cena is drafted to Monday Night Raw, the flagship show, the bigger stage, and suddenly, his booking changes. The rough edges get sanded down, the rapper becomes a soldier, the trash talk becomes inspirational speeches, the backwards cap stays, but everything else starts feeling managed. And there's a specific reason for this transformation that often gets overlooked. In 2006, WWE released The Marine, an action movie starring John Cena as a discharged soldier fighting to rescue his kidnapped wife. The studio had a problem. They didn't want a rapper representing the United States military. The thug persona didn't fit the brand they were trying to sell, and so, almost overnight, the doctor of Thuganomics disappeared. The freestyle stopped, the chain lock vanished. What replaced it was camouflage shorts, dog tags, and a salute. The character that fans had organically embraced was killed so that WWE could sell movie tickets. WWE had found their golden goose, and they were going to protect him at all costs. And look, from a business perspective, this makes complete sense. You've got a young, good-looking, charismatic guy who kids adore, and who moves merchandise like nobody since Hulk Hogan. Of course you're going to build your entire company around him. Of course you're going to make sure he wins when it counts. Of course you're going to keep him away from anything that might tarnish the brand. But here's what WWE didn't anticipate. The audience that had discovered Cena, that had helped make him a star, started to feel like he wasn't theirs anymore. He belonged to the children now, to the families, to the corporate sponsors. And something strange started happening in arenas across the country. The kids would cheer, the adults would boo. Professional wrestling operates on this understanding that there are good guys, called faces, and bad guys, called heels. The faces do heroic things and get cheered. The heels do villainous things and get booed. Simple enough. But what happens when a face, a good guy, booked to be a hero, presented as someone you should cheer for, starts getting booed by half the audience while the other half cheers louder to compensate? You get something unprecedented. You get arenas literally at war with themselves.
You had John getting this electric reaction whenever he came out, both positive and negative. In watching it, when it first happened, you're going, holy, they're booing him out of the building. What the hell? And yeah, there's a little bit of panic there because this was all new territory. You never really saw anything like this.
Let's go Cena. Cena sucks. Let's go Cena. Cena sucks. Back and forth. Every single show. For nearly a decade. Kids in Cena shirts screaming their lungs out while adults around them make crude gestures at the ring. Families divided. Friends arguing. The same man inspiring completely opposite reactions from people sitting in the same building, watching the same performance. The negative chants started emerging somewhere between September and November 2005 during Cena's feud with Kurt Angle. By WrestleMania 22 in April 2006, when he faced Triple H in Chicago, the crowd was openly hostile. The version sung to his entrance theme music, similar to the "You Suck" chants during Kurt Angle's theme, spread through early YouTube and became standardized over the following years. Kurt Angle himself later explained the phenomenon. A lot of fans were disgusted that somebody could win so much, so they started to dislike Cena, and here's the part that took me years to understand. The people booing weren't booing John Cena the person, they were booing what John Cena represented. By 2006, WWE had fully committed to a PG rating. They were chasing sponsors, chasing mainstream acceptance, chasing the family demographic that would make them a media conglomerate instead of a wrestling company. And John Cena became the face of that transition. Not by choice, or at least not entirely by choice, but by circumstance, by success, by being really, really good at the job they gave him. There's another layer to this that rarely gets discussed. Cena wasn't just the PG poster boy, he was WWE's connection to the United States military. His character in The Marine positioned him as a patriotic action hero. He became a fixture at tribute to the troops events. That signature salute during his entrance wasn't just a gesture, it was branding. WWE had invested heavily in associating Cena with the armed forces, and that connection brought sponsors, media coverage, and a demographic that wrestling had never successfully captured before. So when fans who had grown up on the Attitude Era, on blood and swearing and Stone Cold Steve Austin giving his boss the middle finger, when those fans saw John Cena in his bright orange shirt talking about hustle, loyalty, and respect, they weren't just seeing a wrestler, they were seeing the death of the wrestling they loved. Every time his music hit, every time he walked down that ramp with his salute and his catchphrases, it was a reminder that WWE had moved on without them, that they weren't the target audience anymore, that the company had made a choice, and the choice wasn't them. I know, booing someone because you don't like the TV rating sounds insane when you say it out loud, but wrestling's weird like that. It makes you feel things that don't make rational sense. Which brings us back to ECW One Night Stand 2006, the moment we started with. ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, was a cult wrestling promotion from the 90s that had become legendary for its blood, violence, and anti-corporate attitude. WWE had bought the company and was now reviving it as a nostalgia act, which already had hardcore fans feeling some type of way. And into this building, a building full of about 2,500 people who specifically loved wrestling for being the opposite of what WWE had become, walks John Cena, the face of the PG era, the corporate champion, the family-friendly superhero. The crowd doesn't just boo him, they try to destroy him. Cena himself called this night probably the peak of polarization in his career.
Man, it was awesome. There was a sign which actually was brought to this convention today that says, if Cena wins, we riot. Also, the audience was pretty bad. And at about 7 o'clock, they so audibly were chanting, F you, Cena. So I knew by the time we went out at 10 o'clock, it was gonna be pretty gnarly. So we get out there and I have a wrestling match with my t-shirt before I have a wrestling match with Rob. And I look at the sign and I heard the crowd. And I don't know, I would never do this again, and it was the most stupid decision of my life.
He noted that there was no one in this building saying, he's my guy. And here's the thing that gets me about that night. Cena knew exactly what he was walking into. He'd been in the business long enough to know that crowd was going to eat him alive, and he walked down that ramp anyway. He stood in that ring while toilet paper rained down on him. He sold RVD's offense like his life depended on it. And when the crowd celebrated his loss like they'd just witnessed the fall of an empire, he just took it. Because what else could he do? What ECW fans represented was nostalgia for hardcore wrestling. Blood, violence, grit, adult content, everything WWE was systematically erasing. And what Cena represented to them was PG branding, corporate sanitization, family-friendly content. Cena walked into that building as a symbol, not as a person. And symbols can be destroyed without guilt.
My analytics show that over 90% of you watching this analysis aren't subscribed. If you want unfiltered critical history like this, hit subscribe and join the channel.
The years that followed, 2007 through 2010, are where the dynamic crystallized into something permanent. Here's the pattern. Cena is champion. Cena defends title. Cena gets beaten down for most of the match. Cena makes miraculous comeback. Cena hits his 5 moves of doom. Cena wins clean. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And look, I'm not saying those matches were bad. Some of them were genuinely great. Cena could absolutely perform at a high level when given the right opponent, but there's something about predictability that kills emotional investment. When you know how the story ends, the journey stops mattering. Part of the reason Cena felt inescapable was because he worked through injuries that would sideline most wrestlers. In October 2007, he tore his pectoral muscle, an injury that typically requires 6 to 12 months of recovery. He returned in 4. The following year, he underwent neck surgery. Throughout this entire period, he was working through muscle tears, joint damage, and the accumulated punishment of being in main event matches nearly every single week. His body never got a break, and neither did the audience. During this era, Cena had 2 rivalries that defined his championship run, and both illustrated the same frustrating pattern. The first was Edge. Edge was everything Cena wasn't. A conniving, manipulative opportunist who called himself the rated R superstar and leaned into every controversial thing WWE's PG shift was trying to eliminate. Their rivalry was genuinely compelling. Edge would cheat, scheme, and steal victories in ways that made you want to see him get destroyed. He cashed in his Money in the Bank contract on a battered Cena at New Year's Revolution 2006, stealing the title in one of the most shocking moments of the year. Their feud stretched across multiple pay-per-views, TLC matches, and some legitimately brutal encounters. Edge brought out something different in Cena, a desperation, an edge that felt closer to the old Thuganomics persona.
You know, and John trusted me. That was big because he knew I didn't want to try and out-wrestle him. I didn't want to try and make him look stupid. I didn't want the crowd to cheer me. I wanted him to be Hulk Hogan. And I wanted to be Roddy Piper.
Because you can't be Roddy Piper if you don't have a Hulk Hogan.
Exactly.
Right.
But every time it seemed like Edge might finally establish himself as Cena's equal, Cena would win clean. Again and again, the cycle continued. The second was Randy Orton. Orton was the legend killer, this cold, calculating predator who seemed destined for main event greatness. Their rivalry had genuine personal stakes, with Orton punting Cena's father in the head during one particularly vicious storyline. The matches were intense, the promos were heated, and Orton was so good at being despicable that you genuinely wanted to see him lose. But that was the problem. You wanted to see him lose, not see Cena win. There's a difference. When Cena inevitably triumphed, it felt less like a hero's victory and more like the predetermined outcome everyone had expected. Orton would eventually evolve into the Viper and become one of the greatest performers of his generation. But during the Cena years, he felt like just another obstacle for the corporate champion to overcome.
When people look back and think about it, they're like, oh, Orton, Cena, wow, it was this amazing, rivalry. And to have that callback, that nostalgia concept, and to do it for the fans who I feel like they'd appreciate it.
Other wrestlers during this era were reinventing themselves constantly. Chris Jericho would show up with a completely different character every few years. Randy Orton evolved from legend killer to the Viper. Edge went from comedy tag team partner to the rated R superstar. CM Punk shifted personas like someone trying on outfits. Cena stayed the same. Bright colors, inspirational promos, never quit attitude, clean wins. And in hindsight, I can appreciate what that consistency meant. It meant reliability, meant professionalism, meant being someone kids could count on to always be exactly who he said he was. But in real time, in 2008, 2009, 2010, it felt like creative cowardice, like WWE refusing to take any risks with their golden goose, like being force-fed the same meal every single week while everyone around you got to try something new. The booing became habit, automatic. People would boo before he even did anything, just because booing was what you did when John Cena appeared. I began actively preferring other wrestlers. I wanted change. I wanted unpredictability. Cena started to feel like too much. And here's something that doesn't get mentioned enough. Cena was the ultimate company man. He showed up early. He stayed late. He did every media appearance, every PR event, every corporate obligation that other wrestlers avoided. While some top stars would limit their promotional work or negotiate time off, Cena said yes to everything. Morning talk shows, international press tours, charity events, magazine covers. He carried the corporate weight of an entire company on his shoulders, and he did it without complaint. That work ethic was admirable.
For like a 5-day stretch, between 1 and 4 hours of sleep. And then on day 6, I will sleep for 8 hours, sometimes possibly 12 hours, and then repeat the cycle again. My day before that, to get here, was 46 hours long. And I will immediately go from here to other business.
But it also meant he was everywhere, constantly, inescapably. The internet accelerated everything. Forums exploded, dirt sheets went mainstream, YouTube clips spread instantly, early meme culture formed. Fans dissected everything Cena did, nothing taken at face value, every match analyzed, every promo critiqued, every booking decision questioned. Then came June 7th, 2010, Monday Night Raw from Miami, the Viewer's Choice Edition. Cena is in the main event against CM Punk, and as the match progresses, something happens that nobody saw coming. 8 men storm the ring. Wade Barrett leads 7 other rookies from WWE's developmental show NXT in a shocking invasion. They don't just interrupt the match, they destroy everything. They attack Cena, they attack Punk, they assault Jerry Lawler at the announce table. They choke ring announcer Justin Roberts with his own necktie. Daniel Bryan spits in Cena's face. They tear apart the announce table, the barricades, the ring itself. Cena is taken out on a stretcher. This was the Nexus. And for fans who had spent years watching Cena dominate, this felt like hope. Finally, something unpredictable. Finally, someone who might actually beat the unbeatable. Then Cena overcomes the odds. He survives the Nexus. He outsmarts them. He buries their momentum under the weight of his inevitable victory.
Cena didn't want to lose. He didn't want to give Nexus their big moment and oppose the idea. When Edge and Chris Jericho heard about this, they were furious.
You know, we got told that finish, and Chris and I went, oh, what? That makes no sense. I mean, they gotta go over. They were stuck on it, and John was really stuck on it.
John wanted to do things a certain way, and we told him, you're wrong. Remember that? And he did it anyways, and it sucked.
He was adamant to what he wanted to do, and actually when I thought things should have gone over because there were so high up.
I remember we were fighting for Barrett to go over, I agree.
Whether fans saw this correctly doesn't matter. Perception becomes wrestling reality, and the perception was clear. Cena ruins new stars. Cena buries everyone. WWE refuses to push anyone else. Even if it wasn't 100% Cena's fault, he was the scapegoat. This is when the structural paradox locked into place. Cena was now booed like a heel but booked like a babyface. He lived in both worlds simultaneously, and he couldn't escape either identity. This paradox would define the next decade of his career. This is when I truly started to resent him. I wanted Punk to succeed. I wanted Nexus to break through. I felt Cena was blocking the future. What happened next would become one of the most iconic moments in wrestling history. June 27th, 2011, Monday Night Raw, Las Vegas. CM Punk sits cross-legged on the entrance stage with a microphone, and for the next several minutes, he says everything the fans had been feeling for years. He calls out WWE management. He criticizes the corporate structure. He talks about being held down by a system that rewards the safe choice over the talented choice. He looks directly into the camera and tells the audience that they're being sold a product instead of being told a story. And then he turns to John Cena.
I don't hate you, John. I don't even dislike you. I like you a hell of a lot more than I like most people in the back. I hate this idea that you're the best, because you're not. I'm the best in the world. There's one thing you're better at than I am: kissing Vince McMahon.
This is the moment the post-kayfabe era truly arrives. The moment fans realize they can reject the story WWE is trying to tell them. The context made it even more explosive. Punk's contract expired July 17th, 2011, the same night as Money in the Bank, where he vowed to leave WWE with the championship. His mic was cut at the end of the promo. WWE announced his indefinite suspension. And when they finally faced each other at Money in the Bank, it became the first WWE match to earn 5 stars from Dave Meltzer since 1997. For the rest of 2011, CM Punk versus John Cena wasn't just a wrestling feud, it was a proxy war between fans and the company. Punk was the voice of the audience. Cena was the establishment. And every time those dueling chants broke out, "Let's go Cena! Cena sucks!" It wasn't just about 2 wrestlers. It was about 2 completely different visions of what professional wrestling should be. I joined the Punk side emotionally. Cena felt like the machine. Punk felt like hope. This isn't objective analysis. This is what it felt like to be a fan in 2011. Throughout all of this, the Nexus storyline, the Punk rivalry, the constant avalanche of criticism, Cena did something remarkable. He never snapped. He was booed for years straight, yet never lashed out at the crowd. No bitterness, no aggression, no passive-aggressive comments and promos about ungrateful fans. He smiled through it. He leaned into it. He'd cup his ear toward the hostile sections of the arena like he was savoring it. That stoicism, that absolute refusal to acknowledge the hate as anything other than part of the show, became part of his legend. Most wrestlers in that position would have asked for a heel turn, demanded creative changes, or at minimum shown frustration. Cena absorbed it all and kept playing the hero. The period from 2012 through 2014 represents the peak of the hatred. The Rock returns for a feud with Cena, and suddenly the cultural divide becomes even more stark. This wasn't just any rivalry. The Rock was the living embodiment of the Attitude Era, the period fans were desperate to return to. He had left wrestling at its peak to become a Hollywood megastar, and now he was back, dripping with the charisma and edge that the PG era had systematically eliminated. When Rock grabbed the microphone, You could feel arenas come alive in a way they never did for Cena. He could say things Cena wasn't allowed to say. He could be the character Cena wasn't allowed to be. Their promos against each other became appointment television.
John Cena, don't even think about it.
Yo.
No, don't do yo.
Can you imagine Jesus waking up to this face every morning? Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, time to get your whooped.
And Cena, to his credit, actually held his own on the mic.
Like I don't need my notes for my promo on my wrist.
He called Rock a sellout who had abandoned wrestling for Hollywood. He questioned whether Rock actually cared about the business or was just collecting a paycheck. Some of those promos were genuinely great, but it didn't matter. Fans didn't want to see Cena cut great promos. They wanted The Rock to win. They wanted the Attitude Era to beat the PG era. They wanted confirmation that the wrestling they grew up on was better than what WWE had become. At WrestleMania 28, billed as once in a lifetime, The Rock defeated Cena in the main event. The crowd exploded. It felt like the old guard reclaiming their throne. 1 year later, at WrestleMania 29, they had a rematch. This time, Cena won. And even though the match was solid, even though Cena had technically earned his redemption in the storyline, the victory felt hollow, because the real battle, the cultural war between eras, had already been decided. The fans had made their choice. They chose The Rock. They chose the past. And Cena winning didn't change that. By this point, hating John Cena had become part of online wrestling culture. Cena wins, LOL, was a famous meme. YouTube compilations mocked his booking. Reddit threads analyzed every match for evidence of the conspiracy against new stars. And look, some of those criticisms were valid. The booking was predictable. The matches did follow a formula. The outcomes were often exactly what everyone expected. But somewhere along the way, the criticism stopped being about wrestling and started being about something else. Something meaner, something more personal. I remember comments about his appearance, his intelligence, his acting career, his relationships, stuff that had nothing to do with whether he was a good wrestler or not. And that's the thing about internet communities. They can take a legitimate frustration and amplify it into something toxic. They can turn, "I'm tired of this booking," into, "This person is worthless and should be ashamed." Here's the cruel irony of this entire period. John Cena probably agreed with a lot of the criticism. In interviews, he's talked about wanting to turn heel, about pitching darker storylines, about trying to evolve his character in ways WWE wouldn't allow. And it wasn't just talk.
I got word that they were gonna do it. I went out and got all new gear. And I mean, I heard rumblings. And in 48 hours, I had a new track, a new studio mixed theme song. I was ready to go.
New gear, new music, new persona. He had everything prepared. A fully realized vision of what a villainous John Cena could look like. According to later interviews, WWE shut it down at the last minute. The sponsors refused the risk. The merchandise numbers were too important. The Make-A-Wish connection was too valuable to jeopardize. The fans believed Cena refused to change. The reality was that WWE refused to let him. He was trapped in a prison built by his own success. Every time he sold another million t-shirts to kids, the walls got a little higher. Every time he granted another Make-A-Wish, the door locked a little tighter. And the booing continued. And Cena absorbed it, because what else could he do? This was my worst Cena phase. Sick of seeing him win. Sick of him burying new stars. Bored of the same character. Frustrated that Orton, Punk, even the Nexus weren't getting his spot. I wasn't just tired of Cena, I was angry at him. Then gradually, something started to shift. For the first time in nearly a decade, Cena doesn't dominate every main event story. Daniel Bryan rises organically. This ultra-likable, battle-hardened indie wrestling gnome who could bring you to tears with the emotion and passion he brought to every match. The Shield debuts and dominates. CM Punk is still active and popular. Younger stars gain narrative space. And when Cena isn't the center of the universe, something interesting happens to fan psychology. Resentment decreases. Crowd frustration shifts to other targets. The forced push feeling weakens. Fans realize they don't need to boo him out of obligation anymore. Because Cena no longer represents every storyline direction, he becomes less of a scapegoat, more of a performer again. Early nostalgia seeds get planted. Absence, even small, makes crowds remember why Cena mattered in the first place. This is when I stopped actively disliking him. I didn't love him yet, but the anger was fading. The heat was coming off. In 2014, Cena entered a feud with Bray Wyatt, this bizarre, captivating character who was a backwoods cult leader, speaking in riddles and commanding a family of massive, deranged followers. Wyatt represented chaos, creativity, the new era, everything unpredictable fans craved. When Cena beats Bray, the reaction is familiar. Super Cena destroying fresh acts, WWE refusing to evolve. But this feud becomes essential for something else. The seeds planted here will bloom 6 years later in one of the strangest and most beautiful matches in wrestling history. Remember it, it matters later. The true turning point came on March 30th, 2015, Monday Night Raw, the night after WrestleMania 31. John Cena had won the United States Championship from Rusev the night before, a mid-card title, way below where a 15-time world champion should be working. And instead of treating it like a demotion, he does something unexpected.
Behind that giant LED board, want some? It's a hell of a time to come get some.
Every week, anyone can show up and fight him for the title. Dean Ambrose is the first challenger, and what follows is the greatest run of John Cena's entire career. Kevin Owens, then NXT champion, making his main roster debut, answers one of these challenges. They have a match that's genuinely excellent. Hard-hitting, unpredictable, emotional, and Owens wins. Clean, pop-up powerbomb, pin, John Cena loses. The unbeatable superhero gets beaten by a newcomer in his first main roster match, and suddenly all those years of Cena wins LOL don't apply anymore. The challenges keep coming. Cesaro on June 29th, an acclaimed 20-minute classic. Sami Zayn in Montreal, Neville, Stardust. Seth Rollins on July 27th, the match where Rollins accidentally broke Cena's nose, and Cena kept wrestling. Finished the match with blood streaming down his face. Because of course he did. Wrestlers who had been stuck in the mid-card for years were getting a main event spotlight because John Cena was willing to share the ring. And I remember watching these matches thinking, wait, this is actually incredible. Not just the wrestling, though the wrestling was phenomenal, but the storytelling, the generosity, the willingness to lose when losing meant elevating someone else. This wasn't the John Cena I had been booing for a decade, or maybe it was and I just hadn't been paying attention. The thing about the US Open Challenge is that it forced fans to actually watch John Cena wrestle. Not the symbol, not the booking decision, the actual performer. And when you watched him, really watched, you started noticing things. The way he adapted to different opponents, the way he sold exhaustion by the end of long matches, the way he made younger wrestlers look like legitimate threats even when he eventually won. All the invisible work he'd been doing for years suddenly became visible. There's this concept in wrestling called putting someone over, making your opponent look good, sometimes at the expense of your own credibility. And Cena, for all the accusations of burying talent, was actually one of the best at it when given the opportunity. He just hadn't been given many opportunities because he was too valuable as the guy who always won. But now, in the mid-card, with nothing left to prove and no corporate mandate to remain unbeatable, Cena was finally free to be the wrestler he'd apparently always been capable of being. The challenge ended October 25th, 2015, when Alberto Del Rio returned to WWE and defeated Cena in about 7 minutes at Hell in a Cell. But something had changed, not in Cena, in how fans saw him. What once made him stale now made him reliable and admirable. Fans now appreciated work rate, long matches, athleticism, elevation of younger stars. Cena fit this perfectly. He was no longer blocking the future. He was the bridge connecting eras, liking Cena again. Not because he changed, because I finally saw what he was doing. He was giving others opportunities, producing great matches, losing when it elevated someone, and I realized I'd been wrong about him. The years from 2016 through 2018 solidified this transformation into what I'd call the mentor era. Cena loses to AJ Styles in one of the greatest feuds of the decade. Respect, competition, mutual elevation. He puts over young talent, steps aside for major storylines, embraces the veteran role.
I always liked working with John because, again, it was easy. And I think John was in a position where he was almost kind of glad somebody else came in and forcibly took the reins. Just working with him was always great. Like I said, because he wasn't worried about his spot. And I think everybody else up until that point was worried about their spot.
And in 2017, he did something that would look prophetic years later. He cut a brutal promo on Roman Reigns, another polarizing figure who was being rejected by fans the same way Cena had been.
And second of all, it's called a promo, kid, and if you want to be the big dog, you're going to have to learn how to do it, so go ahead.
So I didn't know the first time I watched it, and then I started reading some of the comments, and it was interesting how the diehard WWE fans felt like you had a shift after that night.
Sure, yeah.
It was vicious, it was personal, and it was also, in a way, an endorsement. Cena publicly pushed Roman as the future at a time when crowds were still hostile. He saw in Roman the same potential that others had once seen in him, the same burden that Roman would eventually have to carry. Backstage stories started emerging. He helps younger talent with promos, teaches pacing, offers advice, motivates the locker room. The audience's resentment shifts to admiration. Fans start seeing Cena as teacher, veteran, elder statesman, someone finally giving back what he took. Then came April 5th, 2020, WrestleMania 36. Night 2. Due to COVID-19, WrestleMania is a 2-night event filmed at the WWE Performance Center with 0 live attendance. No crowd, no atmosphere, just empty silence. John Cena is scheduled to face Bray Wyatt, now transformed into the Fiend, a terrifying horror character with a split personality that includes a children's TV host named the Firefly Funhouse. Remember their 2014 feud? Remember what I said about seeds being planted? Instead of a traditional match, WWE creates something unprecedented, the Firefly Funhouse match, a surreal, cinematic, psychological experience that plays more like horror film than professional wrestling. And in this match, Bray Wyatt forces John Cena to confront everything. They recreate moments from Cena's past, his SmackDown debut, with Wyatt playing Kurt Angle, a Saturday Night's Main Event parody, the Doctor of Thuganomics, an NWO parody. They show Cena's dominance, his victories, his absolute control over the landscape of professional wrestling for over a decade, the characters he could have become but never did, the heel turn fans always wanted, the buried potential of others. And then Bray looks at him and says, "Let me in." Cena loses. Not just the match, everything. His legacy, his dominance, his unshakable confidence. The Fiend hits Sister Abigail in the mandible claw. It's over. For the first time ever, Cena acknowledges, through the language of wrestling storytelling, the weight of what his dominance meant, the system that created him, the frustration he absorbed. Look, I know a fake wrestling match can't really absolve someone of booking decisions that weren't even their fault, but wrestling's weird like that. Sometimes the fiction becomes more real than reality itself. For fans, this match officially ended the resentment, the bitterness, the anger. It became the moment fans fully understood the burden Cena carried, the system he didn't control, the pressure he lived under. The final proof came on August 21st, 2021, SummerSlam, Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, 45,690 fans. John Cena challenges Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, and the crowd cheers him. Not the kids, everyone. The adults who had booed him for 15 years are now chanting his name with genuine affection. Cena hits 3 attitude adjustments, including one through the announce table and one from the second rope. Reigns kicks out of all 3. Roman wins with a spear. Had Cena won, he would have become a record 17-time world champion. He didn't, and the crowd gave him a standing ovation anyway. The war was over. What was left was just a really talented guy who happens to be one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. From 2023 through 2025, the final transformation completed itself. Cena loses clean to Austin Theory, to Solo Sikoa, to Roman Reigns, to rising stars who need the credibility more than he does. Not in humiliating ways, in elevating ways. The art completes. Corporate symbol becomes veteran mentor. Unbeatable hero becomes respected legend. Fans now see Cena being humble, letting others shine, working part-time with dignity, willing to lose clean. He becomes the backbone for the next generation, not the obstacle. The kids who loved John Cena in 2005 are adults now. Many of them never stopped loving him. They have their own kids, and those kids wear John Cena shirts. And the cycle continues. The adults who hated him in 2007, a lot of us grew up. We got older. We realized that the things we were angry about, the PG rating, the corporate direction, the predictable booking, weren't really his fault. We were just young and frustrated and needed a target. And now, as Cena announces his retirement tour, something remarkable is happening. The audience is unified. Not "Let's go Cena" versus "Cena sucks." Just appreciation, just gratitude, just recognition that we witnessed something special, even if we didn't always appreciate it while it was happening. Today's fans understand. The system shaped Cena. The hate was never really about him. He carried more than any wrestler should. He shielded WWE from fan anger for over a decade. And through it all, through the toilet paper and the hostile chants and the internet memes, and the years of being told he wasn't good enough, he just kept showing up, kept granting wishes, kept putting on the shirt and walking down that ramp. A man who outlived the hate. Let me bring this back to where we started. June 11th, 2006, Hammerstein Ballroom. A man getting his t-shirt thrown back at him by 2,500 people who wanted him to suffer. In a hospital room, a kid hooked up to machines. A man in a bright-colored shirt making that child feel like he matters. These aren't two different people. They never were. John Cena didn't change. We did. He spent 10 years being booed for decisions he didn't make, carrying hate for a system he didn't create, absorbing frustration from millions of fans who needed someone to blame, and he never complained, never lashed out, never went off script to tell the audience they were wrong. He just showed up, did his job, granted wishes to dying children, and waited for the world to catch up with him. That takes something. I don't know what to call it. Professionalism seems too small. Grace, maybe. Or just an understanding that the hate was never really about him in the first place. Professional wrestling is weird. It makes you hate people you've never met for things they didn't do. It makes you invest emotionally in predetermined outcomes. It makes you scream at a television like your opinion matters, even though everything has already been decided. But it also teaches you something about how we create heroes and villains, about how quickly love can turn to hate when the thing you love stops belonging to you, about how the symbols we need to exist are often just regular people trapped behind a mask they can't remove. A guy who showed up to work for over 20 years, who performed at the highest level his body would allow, who gave sick children something to believe in during the worst moments of their lives, who absorbed more hatred than any performer in wrestling history and never let it poison him. That's not nothing. That's actually something pretty remarkable.
John Cena has tapped out. It's been a pleasure serving you all these years.
Let's get this over with. Hit like, subscribe, and comment your top 3 John Cena matches below. I'll be reading them, so make them count. And if you are tired of the heroes, go watch the history of WWE's greatest villain. We break down the psychology of the bad guys across every single generation. It is honestly one of the best video I have ever made. Thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.